So now it's time for our next speaker, the inspiring Tito Jankowski. Tito is the CEO of AirMiners, the thriving hub for carbon removal entrepreneurs and innovators. He successfully led the development of AirMiners Launchpad, an accelerator program in partnership with XPRIZE and Creative Destruction Lab. Through this program, over 90 early-stage teams have brought their carbon removal startups to life, raising over $25 million in VC capital and 3 XPRIZE awards. Tito's dedication to creating a carbon-negative future is evident in everything he does. Tito's keynote will focus on the critical funding gap for early-stage carbon removal startups and explore potential ways to bridge it. I'm sure we're all eager to hear what Tito has to share, so please welcome Tito with me on stage.
Hey, everybody. Let's get a sense of who's here. How many people here are starting a carbon removal company? Nice. Okay, keep your hands up. How many people are working for a company that's supporting carbon removal companies? That's like buyers, it's like nonprofits, it's policy people. Awesome. Thank you all for being here. Thanks everybody for being here. So next up, I'm going to show you the carbon removal handshake. So I need a volunteer to come up on stage and learn the handshake. Come on up, Marian. Give him a round of applause. This is the first Carbon Removal Basel. It's the first of many to come. Getting to gigatons means this is the first conference, so we need to work out a handshake to get there. So the way this works is you grab the carbon and you never let it go. So now turn to the person next to you and we'll do another demo. Make some friends. Everybody get your hands up. There's carbon in the air. Grab it. And never let it go. When I started my journey in carbon removal, I was convinced that the only way we were going to get to 1 billion tons of carbon removed was through value-added products. We're going to make valuable products. That was the only pathway to 1 billion tons of carbon removed, and I was completely wrong. So how I got there was, my background's biomedical engineering, so I was coming from a world of DNA, of cells, of engineering biology, and I was looking at the climate, and I couldn't understand how it worked. It was this complex web of all these different things. There were problems in food, there were problems in energy, what was going on in water, something in air. And I went to my friend Mac McQuown, who's like this super sharp hedge fund guy, like really analytical thinker. And I said, Mac, I don't see how any of this stuff fits together. And he said, it's really simple. Tito, there's too much carbon in the air. We're adding more every single day. And what we actually need to be doing is removing carbon from the air and stopping adding more carbon. That made sense to me, and that's where I set down this valuable products thing. I was like, okay, so there's the only way to get to 1 billion tons removed is going to be making valuable stuff out of it. So the first thing I did as part of AirMiners, we launched this Kickstarter campaign, making bracelets out of carbon dioxide from the air. So this is like, how do we make valuable things out of carbon? This was really cool. We sold like 600 of them. They were made using carbon captured from direct air capture at Climeworks' facility here in Switzerland. We converted it into a stable graphene particle, working with carbon upcycling technologies, and we made these super cool bracelets. So we're shipping out bracelets all over the world, and this problem keeps coming up though. Because in order to undo 1 year of carbon emissions, I would need every single person on Earth to wear a 10,000 kilogram bracelet. And I just couldn't get over this. I'd say, okay, let's just ignore that, just keep going. But I just couldn't get over that. And so AirMiners launched a startup accelerator, because clearly we need to come up with something that actually scales, actually can do this. Plastics, building materials, these sorts of things. But in our first batch, I remember there was one team that they were coming in and they were working on a calcium carbonate that was derived from a biological mechanism. So they had this material, and they were like, okay, Tito, we got two things we can do with it. One, we can put it in pharmaceutical products, and two, we can put it in building materials. So obviously my first question was like, well, what's the thing that's also in pharmaceutical products and in building materials? But that didn't matter. So we're like, okay, go find somebody who wants to buy this stuff. So they went out and talked to the pharmaceutical company. And they came back and they said, I remember she told me, she was like, oh my gosh, they love the climate impact of it. But they said they're never going to buy it because it's not better, faster, stronger, or cheaper. And I was like, I kind of went into bracelet mode. I was kind of like, okay, let's try like the next, there's got to be a way to figure this out, right? Go talk to the construction company. So she comes back, same thing. Love the climate impact. This is weaker, slower, more expensive, not going to buy it. And just kept coming up on that over and over again. And it's not to say that there aren't pathways to removing big amounts of carbon dioxide from the air, but the opportunities to do that are pretty small, and they're a drop in the bucket compared to billions of tons of carbon pulled from the air. So I remember after the fifth batch of our startup accelerator, we were looking through the companies, and the accelerator it's a total whirlwind of companies, and we're looking through. I remember looking at the list of all the graduates and figuring out, okay, who got investment, who got traction with customers, and then it hit me, and it was like waking up from a deep sleep. It hit me. The companies that are getting traction with customers, the companies that are getting traction with investors, they're selling carbon removal credits, and the value-added products is kind of on the side. And so after that, and that was all these buyers that were just on stage, right? These buyer commitments starting to show up on our front door in terms of the startups that are responding to these things. The hundreds of millions of dollars that are committed by South Pole, Frontier, Microsoft. This is starting to show up in the market, and customers and investors are responding to it. So since then, we've seen incredible hits from startup companies coming through and raising money, finding customers in order to sell carbon removal credits. We've had 95 startup companies. We've got our next batch is graduating in 2 weeks. They've raised over $25 million. 3 of them have won awards from XPRIZE. And what I'm here to talk about today is there's still a gap. So when we look at the batch as a whole, when we look at the top 5 companies in each batch, and we're like, oh yeah, these are the ones that are going to get invested. It's pretty random actually which ones get invested. So there's still a gap in that early stage ecosystem. And so I was really curious about this. So I went out and I interviewed 28 angel investors and venture capitalists and family offices. And I asked this really basic question. I said, what is your biggest concern about investing in carbon removal? And I was so sure that they were going to tell me, Tito, we want to see what the crazy people are up to in carbon removal, but it's never really going to work. And I was totally shocked by what I heard. So my first conversation, I come in and the person says, Tito, carbon removal is going to be a giant, giant industry. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. Wait, why aren't you investing in these companies though? And they said, carbon removal is going to be a giant industry, but I don't know how quickly it grows, how profitable it's going to be. And that's why I can invest in maybe 1 company, but I can't invest in 10. So maybe you're hearing this and you're like, oh, well, that sounds not so great. The way I look at this is a huge opportunity for investors today. It's an opportunity for founders, for entrepreneurs, for people thinking about starting companies. If you have an idea, an inkling about something in carbon removal that you want to start, because closing this funding gap is how we actually get to 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide removed. Getting more solutions out the door, starting to experiment, like Adam was talking about and I believe Tom was talking about. Getting that going that's how we do it. And it's an opportunity that's accessible to, if you're an investor, think about how you might take advantage of it. If there's other investors stuck on the sidelines, how do you change your investment model to be able to invest into these earlier companies? If you're a founder and you're trying to raise money, how do you change your pitch? Maybe even change your business model to think about, look, what if this industry doesn't grow as quickly as we think it will be? What if it's not as profitable as we think it might be? How do you build a business that thrives in that succeeds in that? That's the opportunity here, and it's big for anybody who is interested in being part of removing 1 billion tons of carbon from the air. I'm particularly interested in these forward contracts. Peter Olivier has been writing a lot about great stuff there, specifically prepaid forward contracts. It's something that's been, my understanding is it's been a vehicle for the solar and wind industry to take off, where you're basically paying today for energy tomorrow. Maybe we can bring something like that to carbon removal. And so I would love to see everybody be a part of that. If you're an investor, if you're a startup, if you're working on an idea, would love to meet you afterwards. I've got my phone number up on here. Somebody mentioned phone numbers. I'm here through Saturday, so would love to connect. The AirMiners town hall. We're doing our first town hall ever in about 2 weeks, and it's an opportunity to really connect around this opportunity. This is how we get to 1 billion tons of carbon removed. As the buyer panel was saying, we need more people prototyping, more people taking a shot at it, more people building credibility, and it works across the industry. It's this gap, this opportunity exists, whether you're capturing carbon, whether you're storing it, whether you're doing MRV, any function that you're playing in the supply chain, marketplaces, can benefit from this opportunity. But this is how we get to 1 billion tons, is we need to get more of these companies out the door and on their way to connecting with buyers. So thank you all for your time, and this is the handshake. Grab the carbon.
Never let it go.
And never let it go.
Excellent. Thank you, Tito.